good to have you on the program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sharon. Thank
It's
you.
been a real long time I spoke with you, and I think
Yeah,
it's still Happy New Year from my end,
yeah,
even though it's
absolutely.
February already.
Absolutely. Happy New Year, Sharon. Happy New Year to the entire TVC crew.
Thank you very much. We hope that 2024 will favor the Nigerian working force and all the citizens in general.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope that 2024 will be much better than 2023 because 2023 was a year that the Nigerian workers and indeed the entire Nigerian masses faced a tough and excruciating period. So let's hope that 2024 will bring the best.
Organized labor announced a 14-day ultimatum to government for them to meet up with their own end of the bargain that labor had with it some months ago. And we're also aware that the Ministry of Labor, spearheaded by the Minister for State for Labor, has called on labor to actually withdraw its 14-day ultimatum because there will be the meeting for after the inauguration of the minimum wage meeting that happened about a week or two ago. How would you react to this?
Yes, Sharon, you know that we have lived in a country that there have always been communique and agreement between organized labor and the government, respectively. We have different unions. We've had several occasions where an agreement is reached with government. After the day the agreement is signed, government will go and sleep. So if you recall that on October 2nd, 2023, there was a threat for a national strike. So we had a robust meeting that lasted through the better part of the night. And during those engagements and conversations, we reached an agreement with government. And government was well represented.
It was a robust
Yes, it was a
conversation,
very
actually.
robust meeting. All people in this government. So we had an understanding and we had a communique signed off. So our expectation was that this communique was going to be obeyed. And on several occasions that we have had calls to interface with the president of the country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he has told us over and over again that the era of broken promises are over. That the era where government will sign an agreement and government will not implement, it's over. That any agreement that he enters into or any of the minister, enters into on behalf of the federal government must be implemented to the latter. So he gave us that assurance. It was against that backdrop that we said, okay, it's fine. Let us sign the communique. So since October 2nd that the communique was signed, like for us in TUC, we don't just sign a communique and we go to bed and sleep. No. Immediately that communique was signed, we followed up with lots of, conversations on how most of these items could be implemented. But the more you push, the more you call them, the more you see the cold feet from them. So sometime in December, we also reached out to them. We reminded them that the wage award, for example, that is topmost in that list, that it is just 1 month that has been paid as at December. And by December, they ought to have paid September, October, November, December. That is 4 months. They promised us that they were going to pay, that we shouldn't worry, that they had some glitches here and there, but it will be sorted. So we waited. In January, nothing was done. We also, the Minister of State Labor, she paid a courtesy visit to both the NLC and TUC Secretariat. And in each of these meetings, we reminded her that they have not paid the 35,000 naira wage award. She promised that they are going to pay it before the end of January. So again, we waited. So we got to that time, nothing was done. In fact, they paid just 1 month to some federal workers. So as we speak today, 2 months has been paid to some federal workers, while some, they've only received 1 month out of about 5 months. That is not good enough. Then if you look at the other items, most of the other items, maybe some are implemented up to 20% and others have not been implemented at all. So it's when we now put all these together, because we have been following them up, we have been having engagement with them, having conversations with them, we saw that they are not serious in implementing this agreement. It is actually because of that the leadership met and we decided to issue the 40 days ultimatum to press home our demand.
We are very much aware about the need for a new national minimum wage. And if, assuming the government has actually kept to its word or kept to its word, we are aware that the minimum wage currently, we would say, is even pegged at 65,000 naira. Indirectly, if at all want to sustain the wage award, even though we know that the normal rate is supposed to be 30,000 naira. But because of the inflation, they actually had to add another 35,000, but only 1 month has been paid so far. Very quickly, my question will be that recently the Nigerian Labour Congress president announced that 1 million naira should be pegged as the expectation that workers should have as a minimum wage in the country due to the rise of due to the rise in the cost of living and cost of goods and services. What is your position? The organized private sector employers of labor have actually said no to that figure, that it is not realistic. As the president of TUC, what is TUC's position on this development?
Yes, thank you, Sharon. As at when we agreed to that 35,000 naira addition for Nigerian workers, as at that time, if you recall, as of October, what was our inflation rate as at then, but more importantly, what was our exchange rate? Because in Nigeria, being an import-dependent nation, we live in a country where literally we import everything, where literally they have dollarized the economy. So what was all the vagaries that makes up the economy as at then? It was a little bit better. But as of today, it has gone haywire. As of October, the exchange rate was about 700 naira to $1. But today, as we speak, it's about 1,500, chasing about 1,600. So everything has gone south in our country. So as of then, 35,000 naira for us did not make a lot of sense as of then. But it was still better. The value was still better compared to what we have today. As of October last year, the cost of a bag of rice was around 45,000 naira thereabout. But today, a bag of rice is going for over 70,000 naira. Then you can say that for tomatoes, for tubers of yam, for things that are necessity, that Nigerian workers and indeed the entire Nigerian masses spend their hard-earned income on. So in terms of the figures that you have talked about, as at June last year, when we first had that conversation with government, led by the then chief of staff, we said that, okay, like 200,000 naira could have made some sense as at then. But remember, as at June, the exchange rate was about 450 naira, 450 naira to $1. And as at June last year, what we're actually looking at was, okay, how will the deregulation of the downstream or the removal of subsidy on PMS, how has it affected the economic shift? But as of today, a lot of things has moved. So if you check as at then, 450 naira to $1 as at that time, if you look at today, it is almost times 4. So if that is almost times 4, if you are now multiplying 200,000 naira that we said then by 4, you could see that we are not close from we are very close to what the NLC president announced. But however, the two labor centers are going to sit down and harmonize our clear-cut position so that we will have a definite voice and a definite position on this. So for us, the minimum wage must reflect reality. The minimum wage must be a living wage. The minimum wage must be able to take Nigerian workers home. Nobody should earn a wage that we just earn in transportation, because today, we have people that are working, that will leave the areas that they stay in, the suburbs. They will come to the city center where they work. They cannot go back until Friday. So they come in every Monday, they sleep in their offices till Friday before they go back home. This must stop. The reason they are doing this is because today, all the economic parameters had actually gone out of control. They've actually gone out of hand. So things are hard. Things are difficult. Both the microeconomic policies, they are all shattered. As of today, the fiscal and monetary policies are not adding up. So the Nigerian workers are suffering. So we are all going to sit down together and come up with what we think are much more realistic.
Very quickly, let's move on to the issue of casualization of workers and the fight for decent work. primarily your own base is the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. How would you describe decency in that sector? Would you say that workers in the union are actually doing well with so many sales that is actually going on in the sector?
Yes, in Pengasan last year, we started a particular advocacy because if you, as you know, the oil and gas industry, it's a dollarized industry. What do I mean? The crude that is being produced is exported and foreign exchange is being earned. So when the devaluation started last year, we started pushing for a commensurate wage. We have achieved that in some areas, most especially in the IOCs. But as we are achieving them last year, the fundamental also shifted because when we were having those conversations last year, the exchange rate was around 700 naira to $1. But as of today, it has doubled. What that means is that the advocacy is going to continue. But in terms of decent work and casualization in that sector, yes, we still have them. So we are currently mounting our advocacy, which we are going to push before the end of first quarter, so that these sets of people will be adequately remunerated. Some of them are back to an expatriate. So an expatriate is being paid $10,000, $20,000. Why these Nigerians are paid 3, 4, 5, 600,000 naira, and in some cases it's not even up to that. And they work in excruciating and the most heinous and difficult environment. So for us, we are going to take that challenge between now and the end of first quarter, and we are going to push it truly. Because if you see in other parts of the world, people they refer to as contract staff, they even earn much more money than the in-house staff. The reason is because for contract staffing, you are not responsible for a lot of things. They don't have good medical provisions. They don't have good benefits. But they earn good salaries in order to take care of all these compared to staff. But in Nigeria, the reverse is the case. But we are poised and ready to change this trend. The leadership of Pengasan, we are determined that between now and the end of first quarter, we are going to push this narrative sufficiently as possible.
The International Labour Organization has already sent out a prediction of an increase in unemployment rate across the globe. As the president of Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, what would be your recommendations to government and employers of labor to ensure that more jobs is actually being created?
Yes, in Nigeria, we live in a very peculiar environment. That today we have one of the highest level of insecurity we have ever witnessed in the country. So first thing that government must do is to tackle the spate of insecurity, because the killings are just alarming. From Maiduguri to Lagos, from Yola to Calabar, the story is the same. So we are advocating that first of all, government should sit down and design a proper security architecture in order to resolve this. Because there are no meaningful investors that will want to come to a country that is not secure. Today, part of the reasons that the cost of living is quite high, that the cost of food is quite high, is because the farmers in different parts of Nigeria, from Benue to Plateau, from Kaduna to Sokoto, they can no longer go to farms. So it is a real challenge. Then the foreign exchange market should also be stabilized. Once you stabilize this, both the local and foreign investors are going to have confidence in the economy. And once that confidence returns to the economy, then they would, those that have current companies and industries, we expand them. Then new investors will also be attracted. We have vast land in Nigeria. We have very good culture in Nigeria. So when you stabilize all these, both the macro and microeconomic indicators, you slow down inflation as well. So once all these are done, we believe that the right environment will be created for business to thrive. And we must also look at what are those things that are working against the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Those bottlenecks must be removed. That is why governments are elected. I mean, the president and his handlers, they told us before the last general elections that these are the things that they are coming to fix. About 9 months down the line, we have not seen the dividend. So we will push them hard for all these to be realized so that the rate of unemployment in Nigeria would be reduced. Because The more you keep people out of job, the more you create criminals.
In the spirit of fair wage, what will be your comment towards the advocacy for universal minimum wage across Africa?
Yeah, universal minimum wage across Africa may be something that will be a bit difficult, but it's a vision that could be realized in the long run. So before we could even be talking about universal minimum wage across Africa, look at the AFTA that has been promulgated for some time now. How have we realized that? The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. How have we realized that? What are those things that we have done, both as a country and as a continent, to promote the cause of free trade? Even leave Africa, come to ECOWAS. We'll be talking about the concept of ECO for God knows when. And up till now, there are a lot of bottlenecks that hasn't made us to realize that. So for us, we are not perturbed by that. I think let's focus first of all in our local challenges. Let's look at our local peculiarities, and we look at what are those fundamentals that we must all sit down to tackle in order for Nigerian workers and Nigerian masses to have a better life. I think that is what we should focus on. But what I will advise the government is that let's leave these African jamborees. Let us face our domestic challenges. Let us face our domestic issues. What are those things that we must do immediately to bring down the cost of food? What are those things that we must do to improve the condition of living of average Nigerian workers as well as the Nigerian masses? This is why the government are elected, both at the federal, local, and the state level. I urge the government to sit down. They should close ranks across political divides. They should sit down and find solutions on how to tackle this menace. Because if this is not done on time, I'm afraid it may lead into crises that we all may not be able to manage.
Thank you very much for your time. It was an interesting time I had with you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you for having me.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijasan. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor pays well.